Story title: The Nanny They Called Mother. Before the city woke, before the horns of Danfoss filled the streets, before traders spread their wares on rusted tables, Lagos was already breathing in whispers of heat and hunger. The lagoon still smelled of salt and diesel, and the night had not fully left the sky when Mary stepped into the courthouse, her slippers worn, her eyes shadowed with sleeplessness. She was not rich, not powerful, not even educated beyond secondary school, yet her name had filled the newspapers of the city. Billionaire's nanny accused of theft. That was the headline. The kind of headline that could erase a life. Her back was bent not from age, but from years of scrubbing floors, carrying children, hiding tears. And still, despite the shame hanging heavy over her, she walked forward because she had no other choice. She was about to sit when a sound broke through the silence. Small shoes clapping against marble, hurried voices echoing against cold walls. "Wait for us, Mama Mary!" Everyone turned. Reporters lifted cameras. Lawyers paused mid-step. The judge's clerk dropped his files. There, storming through the grand wooden doors, came Michael, Ruth, and Toby, the billionaire's triplets. Children dressed in polished uniforms, their hair neatly brushed, but their faces flushed with urgency. They ran straight to her, clinging to her skirt, their voices louder than the gavel itself. "She didn't steal anything. She's our mother." The room erupted in gasps. People whispered, flashes clicked, and the judge himself had to strike order into the chaos. In that charged moment, the city of Lagos held its breath. How had a nanny, accused and powerless, come to be defended not by lawyers, not by wealth, but by the very children she was accused of betraying? The answer was not written in the courtroom. It was written in the years before. Mary had not always lived under chandeliers and marble. She was born in Ajigunal, where zinc roofs rattled in rain and drains overflowed with the city's waste. Nights smelled of smoke and kerosene, days of sweat and dust. She had known hunger like a sibling, chewing dry Gary because sugar was too expensive. Her mother, Mama Grace, sold plantain by the roadside, her wrapper always smelling of smoke, her palms hardened by years of firewood. Yet in her eyes lived a stubborn joy. Mama Grace taught her one lesson: dignity cannot be stolen, even by poverty. But death does not bargain. When Mary was 20, Mama Grace fell sick and passed in a hospital bed she could not afford. Alone, carrying debts and memories, Mary became a house help, moving from one employer to another, scrubbing bathrooms until her knees bruised, cooking meals she never tasted, caring for children who sometimes looked at her like she was furniture. Many treated her with suspicion, some withheld wages. But she endured because survival was not a choice, it was necessity. It was by chance, or perhaps by grace, that she walked into the glass mansion in Ikoyi. Julian, the billionaire tech investor, needed a nanny. His wife had died when the triplets were toddlers, and though wealth wrapped the house in marble and glass, inside was emptiness. The children had seen strangers come and go, nannies who lasted weeks, some who were kind but distant, others who were cruel. When Mary entered, she expected only another job. She did not know that 3 small souls would change everything. On her first morning, she waited in the garden while the driver went inside. The air was heavy with the scent of hibiscus. Then they appeared: Michael, Ruth, and Toby. Michael, cautious and serious, studied her like she was a puzzle. Ruth, small and sharp-eyed, tilted her head as though measuring her heart. And Toby, restless and loud, ran straight to her, tugging her hand. "You smell like bread," he said. Mary laughed softly, surprised. She had baked small loaves that morning, a side hustle to stretch her wages. She bent and asked if they liked bread. Toby nodded. Michael gave a small smile, and Ruth whispered, "Can you sing?" Mary sang a lullaby her mother once hummed, a song of night skies and soft rain. Their laughter quieted, their eyes softened, and in that moment a bond was born. Julian noticed, though he said little. He was a man built on contracts and boardrooms, his voice often low and clipped, his eyes fixed on markets rather than people. Yet he saw how his children leaned on Mary, how they began to smile more, eat more, sleep without nightmares. She remembered their birthdays. She patched their torn toys. She listened when they cried. Slowly, without intention, she became more than a nanny. She became a mother in all but name. But Lagos whispers. At parties, At meetings, people muttered. His business partner Daniel was the loudest. "Julian, you trust too much. She is just a servant. Gold that shines too bright can burn your hand." Julian dismissed the warnings, but seeds of doubt are like smoke, they linger even when unseen. Still, the mansion grew warmer. The children thrived, and Mary thought perhaps, for the first time, she had found a place to belong. Until the night everything collapsed. Julian had just signed a deal worth billions. The house was alive with music and champagne, guests laughing under chandeliers. Mary stayed upstairs, tucking the children in, humming softly as she closed their eyes against the noise. Then came a scream from below. A necklace was missing. Diamonds, priceless, part of the family estate. Panic spread. Security guards rushed. Whispers flew, and before dawn the accusation had a name, Mary. They searched her small room. In her drawer, wrapped in cloth, was the necklace. Her hands trembled, her throat cracked. "I did not, this is not," but no one listened. Cameras clicked. Headlines formed. Julian's face was stone, unreadable. The triplets clung to him, sobbing, shouting that she would never do such a thing. But their cries were drowned by flashbulbs. Mary was taken in handcuffs. Prison was silence. She sat on a thin mattress, her dignity her only blanket. She prayed. She wept. Then she grew still. She remembered Mama Grace's words. Dignity cannot be stolen. A young lawyer named Amaka appeared. She was not rich, not powerful, but her eyes carried fire. "I believe you," she whispered. Together they searched for truth. Through grainy footage, servant gossip, and financial trails, the pieces formed. The real thief was Daniel, Julian's trusted partner. He had debts hidden behind his empire, and he had planted the necklace, knowing suspicion would fall easily on the powerless. Mary did not seek revenge. She sought only truth. The courthouse overflowed on the day of trial. Reporters, businessmen, strangers hungry for scandal. Julian sat tall, Daniel by his side, confident. Mary entered in a plain dress, her eyes calm despite the weight of stares. Then thunder came, not from the sky, but from three small voices. Michael, Ruth, and Toby stormed in, clutching drawings, letters, and small notes Mary had written for them over the years. They walked past guards, past whispers, and stood before the judge. "She is our mother," Ruth said, voice clear. "She raised us when no one else did." Michael added, "We trust her." And Toby shouted, "She didn't steal anything." The courtroom gasped. Cameras flashed. The judge banged his gavel for silence. Amaka rose, steady. Piece by piece she laid the evidence. Transfers to Daniel's secret accounts, testimonies from staff, recordings of his late-night calls. Daniel's mask cracked. Sweat gathered. His voice stuttered. By the time silence fell, the truth was undeniable. The judge declared Mary innocent. Daniel was guilty. Mary did not weep. She bowed her head and whispered a prayer. The triplets hugged her so tight she could barely breathe. Outside, cameras screamed her name, but she walked quietly, the children's hands in hers. Julian stood at the gate, shame in his eyes. "You gave them what I could not," he said. "You were mother to them when I was blind." She only shook her head. "They are yours. I was only filling the gap." But the children clung tighter. Daniel's empire crumbled. Once respected, he became a man shunned, sitting alone in a mansion where gold turned to dust. Julian, humbled, stepped back from contracts and towers, spending more nights at home, learning the laughter of his own children. And Mary? She returned to the small church she once attended with Mama Grace. The triplets lit candles, their small voices singing softly. It was not a wedding. It was not grand. It was simply thanks. She placed a loaf of bread she had baked on the altar, a symbol of survival, of giving. The children ran down the aisle, chasing one another, laughter echoing against old walls. Lagos outside still roared with horns. Heat ambition. But inside that church was peace. Mary smiled, and for the first time in many years, the smile reached her eyes. She knew then, not all victories shout. Some are quiet, like bread baking at dawn. But they feed the soul forever. And the story of the billionaire's triplets storming the courtroom to defend their nanny was no longer just about scandal or wealth. It was about love that refused to be silenced, truth that refused to be buried, and dignity that poverty, betrayal, and power could never erase.